Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Sometimes I wonder about people like that. They're so mean and awful to others, I try to imagine what could possibly have happened to them that made them this way. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. My last day at work was a wonderful day. This happened several years ago, but it still stays in my memory as what was my best last day on a job ever. I was a department manager at a major toy store that went out of business in the early 90s. The customers were horrible, and I really was starting to hate the job. I was trying to decide to stay or to go, and if I left, what to do next. I decided to join the military and had several months before I was due to report. I decided to work until just before the holidays, then enjoy a nice holiday season with my family. We had one customer who was a real nasty witch. She routinely brought our teenage employees to tears, but the store manager would not allow us to trespass her. We appealed to corporate and they stated that she could only be trespassed if she assaulted someone. My last day finally arrives and we're shorthanded, and I end up staying late when the store manager failed to show up on time to relieve me. To say I was pissed was a major understatement. He finally showed up 4 hours later. I clocked out and headed for the door. I was still wearing my store shirt and I turned the corner and there she was, the customer from hell. She had cornered our sweetest teenage cashier and Katie was crying. I was done. I yelled at her to get the hell away from her. She spun on me and stomped towards me, yelling, "Who the hell do I think I am?" I told her I was tired of her crap and she was going to leave the kids who work in this store alone, that she needed to pick on someone her own size. We ended up nose to nose yelling at each other. I just went off. I told her everything I always wanted to say to a customer. I honestly don't know how long we were yelling at her, but then she did it. She shoved me and then tried to punch me. I blocked the punch and took her to the ground. I told Katie to call the police, and after they viewed the video and saw that she had assaulted me, she was trespassed from the store. I told the police I wanted to press charges, and as the police started to walk her to the front of the store, I got on the loudspeaker and told all the employees to get to the front of the store. They rushed up in time to see her in cuffs being led out by the police. I yelled over the loudspeaker that she formally trespassed. Merry effing Christmas. She yelled back that she was calling corporate and would get me fired. The last thing she heard as she walked out the front door was me yelling, "Good luck with that. I don't work here anymore." Other employees told me that when I came to pick up my last check, it was awesome to watch. And our second story. Sorry, sir, pictures are not allowed. Hey, so I work for my family business. We manufacture and sell leather products in a few stores. I was working a shift at one of the stores at a local mall last week when a customer came in. First, he wanted me to price match one of our cheaper wallets for our premium leather wallets, which made no sense, but I tell him I can't and think nothing of it. He stays in the store a bit longer, looking at all the jackets, and begins asking really specific questions about where they're made, how we make them, and just a lot of questions. I think he's an enthusiastic customer, so I happily give them lots of details, hoping to get them to buy. He then starts asking detailed questions about our profits and financial situation. Now, this is where I feel it gets weird, and I vaguely answer those questions, but then I ask him why he's asking. I assumed he was just bored or something. He ignores my questions and walks around a bit more, looking at more jackets. I offer to let him try some on, but he claims it's too expensive and walks out. He comes back about 30 minutes later, straight to the front desk, and pulls out his phone. He shows me a picture of a leather jacket and asks me how much something like this would sell for. I tell him I can't answer his questions, but hint that the jacket is not high quality, so not for much. He gets offended at this and begins telling me how he has amazing contacts somewhere who can make this jacket for him and that he can easily sell it for so much money. I tell him that's great, but he insists on talking more and ends up telling me that he wants to get into the leather business and begin making and selling jackets as well. For some reason, he thinks he can disclose that information and continue to get information on our business as he once again begins asking detailed questions about the business. I refuse to continue talking to him as he's wasting my time, so I just tell him that I can't answer any more questions and ask him to leave. He leaves without much hesitation, but does call me rude. Today he came back with what I assume are his 2 adult sons. Now, at first I don't recognize them. I can never remember customers' faces, but I asked them if they had any questions about the jackets. He laughs and says, "No, but I do have questions for you." I get really confused, but then I realize this was that business stealing man from last week. I cease to give them any further service and they leave after a bit. However, they come back again and start to take pictures of the jackets. I immediately go over and prohibit them from taking pictures. The son gets antsy and starts making up a story about how he wants to get a few of our jackets for his daughter and was taking pictures to show her. I tell him, "Sorry, but we don't allow photos." This is where he gets angry and starts demanding to know why we won't allow photos, calls me rude and tells me they won't buy unless I allow the pictures, and begins to tell me how it's illegal to get him to stop taking pictures in my own store. I get fed up and tell him that the reason I'm not allowing pictures is because his wise old dad told me last week about how he wanted to make his own jackets and sell them, so why would I allow pictures of our own designs just for him to steal them? He gets red in the face, yells a few choice swear words at me, tells me to get ready for competition and how they'll tear our business down, takes his dad and leaves, all in front of other customers. I ignore them and continue my day, a bit annoyed but unbothered. I deal with lots of intense customers, but these two were one of the worst ones. Anybody that clueless will not be a serious competitor. And our last story. The story of how I got a restraining order against my neighbor Karen. I'm a 20-year-old female who lives in a suburban neighborhood with my family. A few years ago, we had new neighbors move in next door. At first, they seemed okay, but then they turned out to be complete party animals. I'm talking partying 3 times a week, blasting loud music till 2 a.m. Over the past year and a half, we've had multiple confrontations with our neighbors over petty stuff. Here's the story. Our neighbors were having another one of their super crazy pool parties, and it was driving everyone in the neighborhood crazy. The police couldn't do much because we would make a noise complaint, and the police would show up to give them a warning. Things would get quiet for maybe 30 minutes, but then the partying would start again. Over time, some neighbors began to give up, and eventually some even moved away. This was especially upsetting for my mom when one of her friends who lived on the other side of our neighbor moved away due to our horrible neighbor. My mom had finally had enough. Once the party finally seemed to wind down at around midnight and guests started leaving, my mom marched straight up to the female owner of the house, we'll call her Lying Sally because she's a pathological liar, and warned her that we'll start calling the cops on them more often if they don't stop. Of course, Lying Sally and her party guests laugh and start taunting my mom, which led to an ugly screaming match. Luckily, I had the common sense to record all of this, just in case, and thank God I did. At some point during the fight, Lying Sally screams at my mom, "I'm going to effing beat the crap out of you." One of our neighbors called the cops, which I don't blame him for doing so. I was getting worried for my mom since Lying Sally kept threatening to F her up. The cops came and everything got peacefully resolved. It wasn't until the next morning I reviewed the video and remembered that you can file a restraining order against someone for threat of assault. Now here's the thing, I knew that filing a restraining order against someone can cause that person to maybe lose their job or make it very difficult for that person to find a future job. I knew from the sticker on the back of her car that she works in a daycare. If I were a nicer person, I could have let it go. Too bad I'm petty. So we filed the restraining order, took my neighbor to court, and after showing the judge the video, he was immediately on our side. Especially after she had initially tried to lie and claimed that she never once threatened my mom. She didn't know I had video proof. The judge granted us the restraining order and we were jumping for joy. Meanwhile, Lying Sally wouldn't stop crying and pleading with the judge to rethink his verdict. The real kicker? I made an anonymous call with a friend's phone to the daycare center where she worked and let her boss know everything. A few days later, I noticed that she had removed the sticker on the back of her car. I'm pretty sure she was fired because she started staying at home almost 24/7. Her car almost never left the driveway. Also, the best part, the crazy loud parties finally stopped. It's been radio silent for a whole month. You can bet that during Christmas, our closest neighbors dropped off a lot of cookie tins and chocolates as thanks. Edit. How the judge was able to see the video when phones aren't allowed in the courtroom? I'll explain this. So we're told to have our phones turned completely off, but once the hearing started and Lying Sally straight up lied to the judge saying, "I never threatened her," my mom, I told the judge I have video proof. The judge allowed me to show the video on this Elmo projector thing, and the whole courtroom got to watch the video. That was the nail in the coffin for Lying Sally. Also, in the comments, I mentioned I have video proof of her kissing someone who's not her husband. There are several reasons why I haven't exposed her to her husband as a cheater yet. I'm not sure if she and her husband are in an open relationship. They're both crazy enough to where it would be a possibility. They have kids. I'm a child whose parents almost went through a divorce. I know how horrible that can be. I'm hoping Lying Sally takes this as a sign to turn a new leaf because she also saw that video during the court proceedings. So she knows I have proof of her infidelity, which is probably another reason why their house has stopped the excessive partying. I also kind of hate her husband. He's always been extremely rude, which is explained in the backstory I left a link for near the top of this post. So this is my petty revenge against him. I'm holding on to the video as blackmail just in case the partying does start back up again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.